Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I hope I'm going live about now. This is going to be an interesting one. Now, this is not a reaction to the actual Galaxy Unpacked event because obviously, when it was actually happening, I was quite busy. And to be quite honest, I am pretty tired of Samsung's structure where the minute the event starts, we also get videos from the likes of MKBHD, like your big tech YouTubers and like your big tech websites. So basically, the event is completely pointless. It's just a poor paced like explanation for these devices. So I didn't even watch the event at all. I almost forgot that we had like this thing where like reviewers are getting it like the minute the presentation starts. And so I basically searched for it online, found it like the likes of MKBHD already did like reactions to it, already provided some analysis for it. And I was like, yep, yeah, my job is done here. I can react very, very relaxed way to this rather than the actual event. I can avoid any troubles with like copyrighted music or whatever. So this is going to be a more fun one. Otherwise, it might have been quite stressful, though it might not be quite as exciting as seeing me react live to the Samsung event in a very, very angry way. Now, you can guess from my thumbnail what I mean by that and why I might be angry and why this might be a more ranty and emotional stream than my previous ones have been. But it's kind of overdue. We haven't done a stream like this in quite a while. I do have also quite some decent time today. So if everything works well, it should be like a 1.5 hour, 2 hour stream, something like that. Let's see how many people join. Let's see how many people interact with the live chat. Before I start, as always, ladies and gentlemen, please subscribe. It helps out the channel tremendously if we grow the community. Please like the videos, whichever ones, of course, you enjoy. Please share them out to family and friends who you think might enjoy them too. And of course, please leave comments. Comments are very, very important for the algorithm. Of course, as a live streamer, for me, it's also very important to have you guys live in the live chat so we can interact. You can let me know where I'm right, where I'm wrong, where I'm too sweaty. Guys, believe me, you would be sweating today too. Today is like the most hot, humid day ever in Germany. It was absolutely disastrous here in Berlin. We had like a thunderstorm, which the likes I've never seen before, and then the sun just opened up with like the hottest sun coming right onto your face. I think I got a sunburn like under my eye somehow. So yeah, if I sweat today, believe me, so would you too. So I don't even apologize for it as much as I would usually do. And if you want to support this channel in other ways, of course, there are super chats, super stickers. So if you catch me live, you can send a small donation. You can now become a channel member. Shout out go out to Max Maximus and Angelica, who are MarkTech Pro Max channel members. And you can also subscribe to my Patreon. There are several tiers there, including free ones. Shout out to Louis God, who is my MarkTech Pro Max supporter over there. Jan Hendrik, hi, from Hamburg. You're saying it's getting worse and worse with Samsung. Yeah, to a degree it is because and I will come to like properly analyzing like the Galaxy Z Fold 6 and Z Flip 6 or Z, however you want to pronounce that letter. And those devices are kind of stagnant, but not in an egregious way. I do have a problem with them, and we will discuss that. But yeah, today it's also going to be like Samsung hasn't done like a Huawei move, right? I know I mispronounced Huawei, but whatever. Like a blatant copy of Apple, but just doing it worse and or not doing anything on top that is like uniquely Samsung. And that to me just sucks ass. Like, I hate that kind of stuff. I've been actually like pretty neutral towards Samsung in recent years because I've said like, oh, they're bigger like intellectual property rights abusers in the world than Samsung right now. Also, Samsung by itself, even though it is a legally dubious conglomerate, it obviously does achieve good technical results with things like their OLED screens. Their semiconductors are passable, not great, but they build like storage, RAM. So they do produce a lot of stuff that is still like very relevant in the tech space. And this is the first time in a while where I look at Samsung and I don't see like this huge conglomerate that could actually like reshape several tech sectors if it wanted to. And I see just a shy little kid who's not that smart or not that confident of his or her abilities, so they just copied the homework from somebody else. Their TVs are great, and then it's basically it. Well, their TVs are great now that they have Quantum Dot OLED, so QD OLED. That's one thing, but their TV like user interface is not great. Like LG is far ahead in terms of like smoothness and user experience. But yeah, I would agree that like it's not like Samsung doesn't have good stuff. It's just I would expect a lot of the stuff they have to be better at this point, and I also would expect more good stuff. But before I get started with like a lot of my own analysis, I've already like pre-opened. Shout out to The Verge for actually doing some pretty good summaries on the event, but. At first, I would like to react to MKBHD, who does a good job of summarizing the most important things here. It should be noted that there are no huge game-changing like things with the Galaxy Z Flips or Fold, right? So it's basically like a chip upgrade, slightly brighter screen, a slightly larger battery there, right? So it's not like even if I was even more prepared, right? Because granted, I just came home from work and a long workout and a terrible weather day, but it's not like I had so much more data to analyze, which is a little weird. You're saying LG does the only TVs who have AirPlay by default? I actually don't know. Like I have the C1 and it definitely does have AirPlay integrated. I think Samsung has it too. I'm not sure though. So I recommend you guys look it up if you're actually interested. So, but without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's get started. As always, I plead with you to let me know if my audio quality is working all right for you, if the stream is stable, if the video is good. I've done all the usual precautions, but yes, please let me know if everything is working fine, especially like whenever you introduce another audio source, you never know what happens with OBS. Oh, and before I go into that, cheers, because I need to drink or I will die. Oh no, it's so wet, I cannot even grab it. I'm so stupid. Cheers. Okay, let's get started.
Hey, what's up, y'all? I'm KBHD here, and today, Samsung had their expected summer Unpacked event in July, and they announced 2 new phones and 3 new wearable devices. Well, it's more than that if you count like the small and the large sizes, but a lot of stuff. I got to go hands-on with all of it, and so here are my first impressions. So I'm going to start with the 2 new phones. This was the reveal of the newest Foldables. So you got Z Flip 6.
So the most important thing that you can see here is they're basically completely flat. So basically, if the iPhone 15 Pro didn't happen, right, you can basically see where Samsung took their inspiration here. Now, I'm not gonna like chastise them for copying like the extremely flat design that spans like the iPhone 12 to the iPhone 14 series, but it's also still very clear what happened here. Now, shout out goes out to actually the latest Motorola Plus. I don't even know. Oh, it's the Razr Plus, right? Because it's the foldable, so they named it Razr, which was actually my first phone ever. Um, news. Do they have a good image here? Android Authority, yeah, they should have. Yeah, so this is, by the way, the basic Razer, like $700, right? And this is the Razer Plus, $1,000. This is what you get with the front displays, right? Might I remind you that Samsung is the OLED display company in the, like, I'm not saying the OLED company, but the biggest one definitely. In the last few years, LG has noticeably caught up on many things, actually. But Samsung is the OLED company. Let's not kid ourselves. And this is what you get from Motorola. I basically guarantee that those are Samsung screens in the front. And this is what you get from Samsung on a device that is more expensive, not just than this Motorola, but also more expensive than this Motorola. So this to me is just so unimaginably like insulting to the consumer base and what people usually expect from Samsung. Look, I know that Motorola would have to undercut Samsung in order to sell their devices. I don't mind Samsung technically giving you lower value, but Samsung giving you a worse experience, and especially in terms of the screen, that's just hilarious. And also, small shout out to Motorola for the bezels on the Plus. Now they are terrible on the regular one, but there is a symmetry here that I like. So the side bezels are obviously identical. The bottom bezel feels a little thicker than the side bezels, but that actually works for me. Because you also have like the small lid here from right on the very top with where your hinge is. But then below that, unfortunately, you have, or above that, however you want to see that with a foldable, you have this, which is like a reverse chin. And I just wanted to say, I think that the edges are actually perfectly curved. Like they could have gotten even like fully sharp here, the way that Apple did it for the MacBook Pro, right? Where on the, or all MacBooks at this point, where like the bottom part of the screen is like has just regularly squared off edges, but then there are round ones on the bottom that flow very nicely into the rest of the device. While I believe that Apple would have matched like bezel symmetry a little better, this to me shows that whoever was designing this actually has a pretty good eye for design. You know who doesn't? Whoever made this and then was too freaking lazy, or at this point, probably the fault of Samsung to not give them enough resources, to not change that the year after. Why is this notch not protrude down there? Like, even if we're gonna say, like, look, here the camera cutouts, right? They're actual cutouts. There are actually three cutouts when you look at each individual lens and the LED flash. But then, like, while that you might say, oh, that's a little too much. Three cutouts, like the people who have like phobia of holes, which, like, if you're a guy and you have a phobia of holes, my guy, I'm so sorry for that. But like you could argue, oh, this could be one notch. This could be like one dynamic island, for example. And I wouldn't actually argue too much. In fact, if you centered them perfectly, right, and put the flash in between those, you would actually have very much a replica of the dynamic island, just on a larger scale. Now, when we go back to Samsung, what is the edge here, right? It's like, oh, it's because the dynamic flash the dynamic flash, it's just a flash, is like, oh, centered here, right? So, but it, like, that roundness doesn't match the actual roundness of the camera, so there's no symmetry here, nor does it protrude far enough to actually even interact with the flash, like in terms of spacing. So why did, and also like what I told you about like the edges here, where like, oh, those are almost completely sharp edges because they actually connect to a sharp edge corner, right? And these edges are round because they connect to a very rounded part of the device. You know what Samsung did? They just had basically completely random rounded corners. This doesn't match this or this. And this, I would doubt it perfectly matches the roundness down here. Now, you can say this is nitpicking, but in a world where Samsung shamelessly copies so much from Apple at this point, almost like we've jumped back 10 years ago and Samsung has lost all of its inspiration, somehow Samsung couldn't match the output from freaking Motorola on a device that is more expensive and is powered by their, of course, own foldable screens? Are you kidding me? Guys, please let me know. Am I insane here? Or like, do you see? It's not just do you see that? What I'm saying is 100% true. But do you see the problem that I'm describing, right? The inherent lack of care for what you're putting out. As I'm saying, the Moto Razr, not that great. You can call it the minus, right? That's what Mr. Mobile does, Michael Fisher. And this looks actually great and futuristic and probably should have been like that for a few years at this point. But like, how does Samsung, the OLED company, somehow not match that on a more expensive product that's actually launching like a little later? I mean, granted, that's by a week or so, but still.
And the Z Fold 6. And in general, these phones are very much still minor iterations on top of the last year. Shocker. I was actually thinking about that. Like, this kind of feels like a dismissive way of saying it. Like, oh, Samsung's settled. They're not really changing anything, which is kind of true. But also, on the other hand, these are still phones that are at the forefront of two of some of the most advanced parts of the tech world, which is foldables and AI. So there's that. So yeah, the Fold 6, the big one, looks just like the Fold.
Jan, you're saying you cannot like copy from companies that aren't as successful as Apple. The issue is that Apple does do stuff to a degree that Samsung could have copied from, right? Like as I said, I have to hide my my Coke here. Like when you look at the MacBook Pro, right? It's a very basic design aesthetic. This is where the notch is kind of hidden. So you cannot see the rounded corners. Can you just go to Apple? Okay. My God, they immediately switched to black. No, what are you doing to me, Apple? There has to be. Yeah, okay, here. You can actually see, right? Rounded edge here goes into a rounded, slightly rounded edge of the display. Perfectly matching that. Perfect bezel size matching between top, left, right. Now on the bottom, there are sort of two bezels. There is the glass bezel that still covers like the screen. And that's obviously the same size as above and below. But then you have the plastic part down here that is part of the hinge. It has to be there for like thermal reasons. I know Apple probably doesn't like it themselves, but with how they construct laptops, unless they like completely redesign the hinge, this thing unfortunately is staying. But what you see down there is because this would, for one, this doesn't even hit a device corner specifically, but down below, it's a sharp corner, right? There is like a slight roundedness that comes with the symmetry of the device, but it's not how your eyes perceive it actually when you look at the open product. So what Apple did is they made it sharp corner, right? And this is exactly, when you look at the Motorola Razr, what sort of happened here. Now, this is slightly more rounded than what Apple does on its bottom, but I wouldn't, this basically is meaningless difference to me, right? But then on the top, where it's more curved, the display does the same. And so it does the same here, right? And why is that important? Well, because if you don't care about stuff like that, where do we have that? Samsung, give me the flip. MK, please. This is the front. See, not show it again. Damn.
I got to go hands-on with all of it. And so here are my first impressions. So I'm going to start with the two new phones. This was the reveal of the newest foldables. So you got Z Flip.
Okay. And this is what Samsung does. Guys, you have to see the difference. And this is not a difference of cost. Samsung could have still given you a small screen. Like they could have not done this stupid half notch or whatever, this like reverse notch, and at least giving you like a fully like edge to edge part here. Maybe down below they could have actually used that extra space now for more cameras, larger display, larger batteries, whatever, right? It's like I will end it with here because we're almost 20 minutes in and I still haven't really started. But I just wanted to say the reason why I'm so pissed off, this is a symptom of the kind of behavior that pisses me off. This is not the main issue. I could not fully ignore it, but basically live with it if the rest of the presentation, like the things that are presented, made sense, but they don't. If prices had gone down, I would have been like, okay, those are kind of compromises of like reuse and logistics here. But somehow prices have gone up and we are now falling behind the competition.
6, and this is on top of the last year. Shocker. They're not really changing anything, which is kind of true, but also on the other hand, these are still phones that are at the forefront of two of some of the most advanced parts of the tech world, which is foldables and AI. So there's that. So yeah, the Fold 6.
Foldables are not more advanced by definition. Folding screens are an interesting side piece of the OLED smartphone revolution, right? Because those are self-emitting pixels. You can shape them, right? Is it actually a fundamentally superior technology? From the idea that it allows you to create like different device aesthetics, form factors, etc., yes, it is. From all other perspectives, in terms of what we actually associate with like a modern smartphone screen, are the screens going into foldables brighter, higher contrast, higher resolution, higher longevity? Are they more durable? Well, for one, in most aspects, they at best match the current OLED technologies that we have on basically every smartphone right now. But in several ways, especially longevity, they actually suck ass. So the fact that we now have, foldables are like on the forefront of, they're at the forefront of foldables. Actually, no. Samsung is not at the forefront of foldables. The fact that they keep making foldables does not actually mean that they're in the forefront of technologies. Like on the Fold, they're reusing the same cameras now for years and years. On the Flip, they barely got their ass up to finally put in a 50 megapixel camera in there. Like there is nothing here, especially for the price, that screams at the forefront of anything. And yeah, AI also is not, but we'll talk about AI here.
6, the big one, looks just like the Fold 5.
And you can see just how extremely flat it has gotten. I have said that I don't like extremely flat designs, and I've actually said it while I owned an iPhone 13 Pro Max. This is why I owned like cases that made its edges slightly softer. And why I was so happy about even the small redesign that we got with the 15 Pro series. I have to say, as much as it sometimes annoys me on large devices, where like really sharp, like really boxy design is completely unacceptable to me, is when something is actually thick and like pushes into your hand. And congratulations, Samsung. You have actually combined that stupid design compromise. Right, because technically a super boxy design allows you for like maximum space efficient usage of internal space. I fully understand that. Can be good for cooling, antennas, whatever. But overall, like putting this on the Fold especially, like the Flip, okay, the Flip is somewhat manageable in size. But on the Fold that becomes like twice as thick once you fold it in half, That's just, to me, is unacceptable.
Square up the sides a bit more.
The front screen, it looks somewhat immersive. I believe it's still 60 hertz. Not sure about that though. My issue is, of course, that we now have like even something like the Google Pixel Fold, which have a vastly different form factor and aspect ratio for the external screen. So Samsung is also lagging behind here. However, it does have some advantages, obviously, because it allows the device to be like taller. Without also being wider, right? A lot of the devices that are actually wider are also actually shorter, right? So they might actually not be that much wider. They just have a different aspect ratio, if that makes sense mathematically. But yeah, I'm not a huge fan of just how slim that front screen is, unfortunately. And I also, at this point, I'm just so over the idea of like any arguments that like Mr. Mobile does of like, oh, a smaller front screen allows you to use your device less because your device sucks a little, but if you actually need it to not suck, you can open it up. And I'm like, okay, why would I ever pay extra for that kind of experience is beyond me. And I feel like that now charging almost $2,000 for this with all the compromises, especially to durability, that still persist. Every year we are told, oh, we made the hinge slightly better or smaller, right? Smaller actually works because you can see that, but all those durability claims rarely actually transfer to something tangible. Like OnePlus promised that like with their like I'll just call it the OnePlus Fold. Who cares? I forgot the name. And I hate the naming, to be honest, of so many devices out there. I'll look it up just for my own sanity. OnePlus Fold. OnePlus Open. Okay, what a stupid name. My God. So that was one rant here that didn't have anything to do with Samsung. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Shout out to OnePlus for pissing me off apparently as well. Yeah, so I was just going to say, like, this form factor isn't great. We've already improved on that, but Samsung keeps basically doing the same thing because, well, that's what like their logistic chain has been prepared for, and all claims of better durability just aren't getting realized. Like OnePlus Open that explicitly told us that they had like, oh, the best hinge ever for the most durable foldable ever, and it was like getting like huge warranty claim issues and stuff like that a few weeks after launch, even like a week or so after launch. So Samsung is actually doing quite all right when it comes to durability by foldable standards. That being said, those are not exceptionally high standards. And of course, that is primarily the result of Samsung messing up the original Fold so much that it's almost as legendary as their recall of the Galaxy Note at this point.
Change up the look of the camera housing just a little bit and give it slightly thinner bezels on the inside and the outside. And that makes the cover screen just a tiny bit more usable. And now both of these screens get up to 2600 nits now. Give it the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, give it some new colors, and that's about it. You got yourself a new generation. I mean, there's a couple other even smaller things like, a slightly better hinge. There is a new ultra wide camera, and the square sides, I think, give it a little bit more interior.
Yeah, as I said, there are almost no camera changes except for a few, right? The biggest one does come to the main camera of the Flip. The Fold does have some smaller changes like to the ultra wide camera. However, how actually tangible those are is hard to say, because with Samsung you never know like which exact sensor they use with the exact image science, right? For example, when you look at Mr. Mobile's review of actually the Motorola Razr and the Razr Plus, you will find that those phones behave almost entirely differently between all sensors that they have. So buying those devices is not like, oh, I want a slightly better camera. It's like, no, you get an entirely different take on the world from that camera. Like the color science is completely different, focus behavior is different. And with Samsung, especially on their foldables that are kind of known to use like older tech, that is more and more the case, because as advancements for their main sensors for like the Galaxy S Ultra sort of pile up and they add AI to it and stuff like that, all the more left behind is how those cameras and things start to look.
Volumes, which allows for a 60% larger vapor chamber for better cooling. But aside from that, like same battery size, same general.
The vapor chamber is like the one thing that I feel like is a really, really good advancement. That being said, it's kind of necessary given that their foldables were kind of known for pretty trash heat management. So it's an overdue change, but also a change that I kind of would love to see Apple do. So I'm not going to criticize Samsung here. However, given the fact that they're actually doing this with a price increase, it kind of is a no-brainer to me. They kind of had to do it. At least I think so.
Form factor, same underscreen camera on the inside, just a lot of the same stuff. I think more of the focus for this phone and for the others, of course, is this new AI, this Galaxy AI thing that they're pushing to the forefront. And so kind of similarly to what Apple just did a couple months ago, is they're trying to surface all of the AI things that they've been doing and some new stuff to the top so you can see it all in one place so regular people actually use it. And they also kind of brand it Galaxy AI, sure. So now in the settings app, right at the top, there's this new Galaxy AI section full of all of the newest features, some of them genuinely useful, I'll say, others maybe not so much. Like call assist, okay, clearly that can be useful. Like there's things like the interpreter, you can speak back and forth with people in different languages, that's cool. Note assist is going to help people summarize things inside the Notes app. Transcript assist will summarize voice notes. All these things are pretty standard. We've seen them before. If you use Samsung's browser instead of Chrome for some reason, you can hit that stars AI button and get.
By the way, a small negative shout out to MKBHD for this. Samsung's browser is not bad on their mobile devices. This idea that everyone should be using Chrome is exactly how we ended up changing the open World Wide Web to basically like a Chromium reliant like mess. So yeah, guys, please keep using the Samsung browser if you actually like it, and of course you have a Samsung device. It seems like it is better at RAM management and it preserves battery life better than Chrome. So yeah, keep using it.
The summarization you'd want of any web page that has a bunch of text on it. We've seen that before. Generative fill of some extra information from a photo you've taken is also not new, but now it's new to Samsung's Gallery app. So if you want to make a photo wider...
So the Galaxy AI changes, you can see it's like, we had a feature here, we're now giving it to more devices, now we are putting it into a different app, one that people might actually use. From the speed of it, I kind of expect this to still be mostly reliant on the web, right? And it's basically just like a Google and Samsung partnership, where Samsung most likely pays Google to have access to these features in an unlimited fashion. I'm not sure if that is part of why we got a price increase. I want Samsung to delete it right away, but yeah, it is what it is.
Angle than it actually was when you took it, or maybe just straighten a horizon or something and you need to fill
like, you see, it takes a while, which at this point, like for anything that happens on a smartphone, I kind of want it to be almost instantaneous to instantaneous. Waiting so much for all of this, especially in like the regular gallery app, I kind of like, if you have like an app like Photoshop or even Pixelmator, and you kind of expect it to have some stuff in there that might take some extra time, some extra resources. But at this point, it's like, okay, bro, like this is the regular gallery app.
On some corners, it seems to do a surprisingly good job at that. But then there's also drawing assist. which can take something you draw.
Now, I'm very curious if this works like through the browser or through the web. I wish that more tech reviewers would actually be more outspoken about this and actually like comment on stuff like this so we actually know. But yeah, like again, I don't want to say it's the length of the processing that gives it away, because if you have a not so fast like neural engine and GPU that integrates with the neural engine and machine learning accelerators on the CPU, it might actually take some time. But I would still bet that it's most likely happening on Google servers. Like, I don't know if Google has yet introduced like a large language model for this kind of stuff that runs on device. I know they have some stuff that can run on device, but I'm not sure, and I would be doubtful that this applies to these kinds of tasks.
Sketch in Notes, even if you're an absolute piss poor artist like myself, and it generates art in any number of different styles from it in Samsung Notes. This looks almost exactly like what Apple's like Image Playgrounds app is doing. The watercolor style, a little more tame, but then there's also this 3D cartoon style. And
again, like I've said that like Apple will have like a feature similar to this, where if like you draw something in the Notes app, you circle it, the AI basically turns it into something better. So if you draw a house that's basically broken because maybe it was divided politically and a divided house cannot stand, but and then like the Notes app will basically draw it in a somewhat acceptable way. I hope the same thing from what Apple does applies to things like graphs. So maybe if I want still a graph that looks like hand-drawn, but I want it obviously to look better than if I had drawn it, I hope that that works there too. Now, when it comes to things like that, I'm not an artist, so I might not be as like outraged as some people are for like, oh, this is stealing artists' life work. I'm like, really? This? I understand obviously that AI art is highly, highly weird. Like, I don't even want to say controversial, because it is definitely controversial, but some people absolutely love it. Some people absolutely refuse to ever use it. And then I would say that stuff like this is not even art in any way. So I wouldn't even worry about this in the same way that I worry about some other AI features. So, but that's just me. I try to have a nuanced view here.
If you give it some time, honestly, pretty impressive. I don't know if this is good art, but it's just
no. This is the point. It's definitely not good art, and I don't think it's actually designed to be. Jan, you just saw their new headphones, and they are looking terrible. In that case, better no headphones. Yeah, we'll get to that.
A lot. You know, that's a lot to do with my finger painting. So anyway,
guys, we are about half an hour in. I just want to remind you very, very quickly, if you're watching this and enjoying this, please subscribe, like the video, share it out to anybody who you think might enjoy it, and comment on the video, of course, right now live, but also if you're watching this video afterwards, please leave a comment anyway. And if you want to support this channel directly with a small donation, there are super chats and super stickers that you can leave. And of course, you can subscribe to my Patreon, or you can become a channel member. There are a few different tiers for all of it. So if you want to give a little or somewhat more, that's all up to you. Of course, just watching the videos is greatly appreciated. And without further ado, let's continue.
Anyway, the Z Flip 6 is again along a lot of the same lines as the Z Fold 6. So again, Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, squared up sides, slightly refreshed design. And spec-wise, they've kind of matched a lot of things with the base S24. So it actually has the camera from the base S24, the 50 megapixel main camera, and the 12 megapixel ultra wide.
Oh, okay. So both cameras are new on the Flip. That's good to know. That gives it slightly better value. That being said, it now costs like I don't even want to say it costs like the Galaxy S24 Plus, because obviously at this point the S24 Plus can be like so easily had below even $900, much less $1,000, and this is $1,100. but at least it gives it some more justification for being highly priced. It's just that it's still too highly priced, in my opinion.
Battery gets bigger. It goes from 3,700 up to 4,000 milliamp hours, which is promising. And that inside screen.
This is where I want to say, like, the thermal improvements on the overall family of flips and folds. And the battery size increase on the flips is really, really welcome. Now, that really puts the capacity in the fold into question, because 4,400 milliampere hours is just weird at this point. Now that the flip has 4,000, like, what the frick are you doing inside the fold that you couldn't put in like a battery that is like at least like 20% larger than this? Maybe, like, how are you limited to a 10% larger battery than a device like this is absolutely beyond me. But yeah, there are at least some changes that I appreciate. I don't want to like completely down talk all the good stuff inside the devices, but it's all getting eaten up by actually bad decisions. As I say, the design changes are actually not beneficial to the people using those devices, because now you have those sharp corners that will make it less comfortable to interact with the device. And the price increase is just ludicrous. Even if you increased memory or whatever, like, bro, like, those devices were already out of reach for so many people. This is just appealing to upgraders. Like, this appeals to no person who hasn't already owned like a Galaxy Z Fold 4, 5, or whatever.
Does also get to 2,600 nits now as well. And there's a
No, it doesn't. Like, given the fact that Samsung has been using like this 2,400, 2,600 nits rating, like for the Galaxy S24 Ultra, and I believe also like partially like the rest of the S24 series, it to me is just like no test out there is actually showing that in real life, in the outdoors, it underperforms the iPhones in terms of actual brightness. Now, the Galaxy S24 Ultra does have the nice benefit of having a great anti-reflective coating, which I'm not sure if it's replicated here. But yeah, if you plan 2,600 nits, maybe for like a small portion of the screen for HDR. But then again, I also have not seen tests that actually fully give you 2,600. So I would highly doubt that Samsung now gives this to you on a foldable. Jan, you're saying you find the CMF, like the nothing phone, like more exciting. Yeah, I do have my issues with that, but my issues with there is like, oh, what are the compromises that you made, right? Mainly like removing features like NFC. And what did you get in return for it? Well, of course, you got the lower price, but also you got like the gimmicks there. And I've said that the gimmicks look cheap as hell, right? To the point where I'm like, you could have made a more premium device that doesn't have those gimmicks. And the fact that those gimmicks are actually gimmicks, right? Usually whenever there's something playful about a device, I will be pretty open about saying, like, I don't care if something is a gimmick or not. It can still be fun to people, right? However, on the the CMF phone 1 by nothing, I believe, is kind of like the official. No, it's kind of like Daenerys Targaryen, first of her name, Queen of the Andals and the First Men, Protector of the Realm, Breaker of Chains. It's like CMF phone 1, made by nothing, sold in India, trying to appeal in the West, failing desperately to please Mark. Please buy it $200. This is what I get like with the CMF phone 1 by nothing. I hate that. But I'm sorry for my ranty style today. It's like nothing pleases me. But yeah, I actually agree with you. I think there's more interesting discussion to be had about the CMF Phone 1. Like, oh, which markets in the world actually need NFC? Which ones don't? How much do you like replaceable backs on a device that doesn't let you actually replace the battery internally, right? So yeah, it's a mess a little bit. You're saying if if it weren't for Apple, you would be at nothing. The problem with nothing is that their initial rollout, right? They had like this focus on software. And while I'm not a fan, I don't begrudge anybody who liked their focus on software. But one thing that they did beyond the dot silly designs, whatever, was actually have software that was like pretty efficient and pretty smooth, especially given that like their initial devices didn't have like flagship processors or something like that. Unfortunately, as they kept introducing new devices like plus size devices and cheaper devices, and they branched out with like watches and whatever, like the issue there is that everything that I hear online, like Reddit and whatever, is that nothing phones have had a drastically changed user experience. The battery life is either dramatically lower than it was in the past, or it just fluctuates. Performance is not quite as smooth as you would think from like a device that was already smooth and then was upgraded with a newer processor. It feels like there is stagnation there because they're trying to bite more off than they can actually chew, which is actually true for all companies. Like the fact that Apple wants to release 4 iPhones every year, we can try to beat around the bush with it, but it does hurt the user experience. Having different size devices, right? Different resolutions, therefore. Different processors that each have like different amount of cooling, different amount of battery. One is paired with on one device you have like a newer chip but an older modem and stuff like that, or like an older chip but a newer modem. It's a bit messy, right? Now that mess is unfortunately necessary if you actually want to reach a lot of devices, but we are far beyond the days of like iPhone 4, 4S, iPhone 5, I would say, was like the last really clean one, right? Oh, it's like slightly larger, but that's it, right? It's still an otherwise clean device, just one in the lineup. Then it got more complicated with the 5S and 5C. And then we had the 6 and 6 Plus. At that point, we didn't just have now 3 active, like differently sized displays, right? 4 inches, 4.7 inches, and 5.5 inches. But now you also had like, of course, you had like that aspect ratio change to 16 by 9, going from the iPhone 4S to the iPhone 5. But now the iPhone 6S, the iPhone 6 actually had the same pixel density as the iPhone 5S, while the iPhone 6 Plus had a higher 400 ppi. And the iPhone 6 Plus was also optimized more for landscape. So Apple was already having to optimize now more for more resolutions, more display sizes, more pixel densities, not technically different aspect ratio, but like one device actually being used in a very different way. And of course, that complexity hurt Apple as well over time. But if you are a small company like nothing, that hurts you just way, way more than it does Apple.
A variety of like widgets for the outside screen. So ideally it just gets a little bit more useful than before. And it also gets a vapor chamber for the first time in a flip and a new base of 12 gigs of RAM. And there's these new colored metal rings around the cameras so you can kind of visually tell, oh, this is the new one. Like I'm convinced that's the only reason they did these rings. But yeah, we'll have to see if these phones and their folding screens age better than the previous generation. Obviously a slightly better hinge can help, but as far as I can tell, they just look like the same level of crease, the same feel of a hinge, just overall.
And they didn't like. I tried to read up what Samsung was actually
these phones are both
saying about these
more
devices.
Than
there was
so
nothing
the Z
major
Flip 6
that they
is gonna
talked
be
about in regard to
$1099
like the hinge or whatever.
And then the Fold is going to be $1899 instead of $1799.
Yep. And that's bad. Let me briefly look up though. What is the official like base configuration here now? 1099, 1899. That's all now with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3. Both phones are rated for IP48. So it should be noted that 4 doesn't actually mean that much, but whatever. Otherwise, you have pretty similar screens. Inches with the Fold 6 camera hardware is much the same as last year too. 50 megapixel main, 10 megapixel 3x telephoto. That's the terrible one we always focus on with the S24 Ultra. But an updated 12 megapixel ultra wide. Again, It's like how much better. And also it happens like right before like the S25 Ultra should bring you a brand new like 50 megapixel ultra wide, but that one should actually have a slightly smaller sensor. So I don't know what Samsung is thinking or what they're doing at this point. um, so there's 12 gigs of RAM in the base model now, both on the Flip and the Fold. And the Flip also starts with 512 gigabytes. So you get more storage basically and RAM for that price increase. Um, so basically these devices are kind of not designed to almost be like, oh, get an even more expensive version. It's like, yeah, these are the models that Samsung will produce, right? And at that price they're sort of acceptable, because obviously if you upgrade an iPhone to like 512 gigabytes of storage, it is kind of expensive. Well, I mean, you're at $1,400 at that point with a Pro Max. A Pro Max will be in every way, shape, or form better than the Z Flip. And there's also like a question on a device that has like pretty old cameras, things like that. I just wonder how much storage you actually need on the Flip. Like on the Fold, I could actually see a pretty decent argument to give it 512 gigabytes of storage. I would hope that it stays at $17.99, but I guess $18.99 is kind of like almost like a rounding error. If I don't want to sound like an asshole in that regard, but like 10% more on the Flip for for more RAM and storage. But at that point you're like asking, couldn't you have given it more RAM but kept like 256 gigs? Like, what is bad about 256 gigs at this point? I don't know. What this makes me sort of wonder about in a positive way is, could they actually like give the next Ultra 512 gigabytes of base storage? At least not with a huge price increase. Like maybe it will go up to $13.99, up from $12.99. And especially if they also give it 16 gigs of memory, I kind of then see them not doing a price increase. But that would be a nice upgrade that I would take. Like $13.99, so $1,400. The exact same price that the Pro Max would charge you for a device with 512 gigs of storage, but with double the RAM, which I think is a relatively good deal for like an Ultra that also has like an S Pen and whatever. The problem with these devices is just like the Flip competes more with like mid-range devices, but costs more than most Android flagships. And of course, it starts at actually $100 more than even the iPhone Pro. And it gives you like twice the storage at $1,100. But at that point, it has like worse cameras, worse screens, worse almost everything in terms of actual user experience. Except for that it technically has a larger screen, but again, with that crease, I actually really dislike the screen of the Flip. I think on the Fold, it sort of works with like the vertical crease. I hate the horizontal screen on the Flip, but that's neither here nor there. So those are the prices. So what you do get though is the prices to me are not the most egregious thing. Again, I do have to be intellectually consistent here. I am an Apple customer. I am myself used to pretty high prices. So to me, the fact that while the prices are up, at least you're getting something in return, especially on the Flip, right? The Flip didn't even have vapor chamber heat sinks before that. It didn't have 12 gigabytes of memory in the base configuration. So I actually think it's a pretty worthwhile thing for the price. I just wonder, like, at what point do you really, really discourage people from even getting these devices, especially for somebody new to the category, right? I always talk about that when I mention like Apple Watch, and people say like, well, it isn't that much improved from gen to gen. And I will be like, yeah, that's true, but the majority of Apple Watch buyers are still new to the category. And it seems like Samsung is almost giving up on that with like their foldables, where they're saying, oh, we just want the people who already bought the previous generations, like them, and are willing to now spend a little more because inflation or whatever. I'm not a big fan of that strategy.
99.
And yeah, the AI features, they're pretty par for the course. They're not game changing. I would probably believe that like the AI is also partially why Samsung is pushing up RAM amounts, and of course like storage less so, but it's just a value thing. And with the new processor, the Flip has an almost 10% larger battery. The Fold does not. I am worried about the battery life of the Fold here. It has like, what did he say, like 60% larger vapor chamber heatsink, which applies that it was kind of necessary for the 8 Gen 3, right? Usually you can get like small improvements, like 20 to even 30%, just out of the goodness of the heart of the manufacturer. But whenever they give you like 60%, that kind of suggests that the chip actually needs it, or that the previous devices was absolutely trash when it comes to cooling. And yeah, I just don't know. Like for an almost $2,000 device, getting such then a compromised battery life.
So it's the direction they're trending. But then there's also the wearable stuff that they announced, and I think people will be just as interested in, maybe even more interested in the wearables than the phone refresh stuff. So there's 2 new watches, 2 new earbuds, and the Ring. So the Galaxy Watch 7 gets...
The Galaxy Watch 7 is basically what has been happening to Apple's new Apple Watches for quite a few years. It's taking the old design, giving it some new features, and that's it.
It's a nice little refresh. Nothing too dramatic. It still looks super familiar, and it stays starting at $299 for the 40mm. But then they've dropped in a big one. There is a Galaxy Watch 7 Ultra in the lineup now.
And I hate this device so much. Again, we've talked about design language here, right? Now we have the MacBook open here, so we are already on Apple's websites. Well, let's go to the Ultra 2, which obviously looks the same as the Ultra, which is obviously what inspired the Galaxy Watch Ultra. Now, what do we have on the Apple Watch? Well, we have a couple of things. We have a fully titanium body, then ceramic on the back where we go into like your health sensors. On the front, you have like this elevation that like is designed to be slightly above the screen. So if you like fall down and like your device smacks down on the ground, the thing that the ground actually hits is like this titanium lip almost. This is also partially why it has a slightly thicker bezel here. So even if you have like a small scratch going right here or something like that, that would hit like the dark bezel, not where you actually have screen. Now, I would have loved a full edge-to-edge screen on the Ultra, but I do understand the compromise. I also understand that they probably want to like have that improvement as something to sell on an Ultra 3 or an Ultra 4. We have the crown guard here because obviously we also do want to protect the buttons. And we have, while we do have the action button, it's important that there is a design characteristic here that is pretty unique to Apple. Not because this color was never used before. This is international orange, right? This is like an SOS color. It's designed to be super vibrant, super visible in the dark. Now, it serves very little purpose on an Apple Watch. It's just a design aesthetic that shows you, oh, this is an adventurer's Apple Watch, right? This is what the Apple Watch Ultra is. Jan, you're saying there was a company that used the name Ultra and had an orange band. Oh, yeah, you're referring to Apple right now, yeah. But yeah, it just was funny to me that like nobody even thought of making like an action button in this way or any kind of button like this color. On previous Apple Watches or on other Apple Watches, this circle inside the digital crown is red. That's designed to show that you have the cellular Apple Watch model, right? And what Samsung did is they looked at this and thought like, you know what? We will copy not just the basic idea behind this, but we'll even freaking copy the use of orange here, which is like one of the most controversial and disliked decisions that Apple made with the Apple Watch Ultra. A lot of people said, oh, that orange looks weird with my bands. It makes the watch look like less neutral and things like that. And what Samsung did, now, of course, the band itself already is pretty much a knockoff. But then when you look at it,
We saw the rumors. I talked about it on the Waveform podcast. This is something that we've been kind of expecting.
Also, like, for one, you do have that same, like, now this is black. I assume this isn't like anodized titanium, but just like colored, like painted basically. But you do have like this shiny thing, which kind of looks like Apple's ceramic back. I'm not sure. But you then have this orange button, of course. But now you also have this circular front display on a squared off watch with literal empty space that is gray. Like, what the frick is going on? Like, you have this combination of the band, of course, right? Then the metal, then the gray, then the black outline for like the, I don't even know if this is actually like a mechanical thing, right? That squircles around. And then you have the orange from the buttons on the Apple Watch, which, yes, does have its compromises, but you have the band, which is, of course, your band of choice. Apple has a huge watch band collection there. Jan, you're saying it looks like a watch from AliExpress. It looks like we have Apple Watch at home, right? Or like, oh, we ordered like an Apple Watch from Wish. Like, but you have like that titanium body. I wanted to say stainless steel. That's not true. And that titanium body basically is titanium body, both here, the rounded one, then the lip that covers it. The color actually is not different, obviously. It's just, it reflects the light a little bit more because this is like a slightly polished front. And then it just moves into the actual screen, right? Into the black of the screen, because and then that black can perfectly match the OLED's blacks. When you look at this, it has none of that. Now, you do have bands. Now, the collection will be smaller, but okay, that's not too bad. And then you have slightly visible, like the metal of the overall product, which I don't know if that front is actually. Wait, is that like a scuff? Or what's happening here? Am I insane?
For a bit, and what they.
Oh no, that's just a reflection. So you have the metal. And you do have a shiny border here, which I 100% believe you will tell you that this was inspired by the Apple Watch Ultra lid here, lip that like protrudes a little, because the Apple Watch Ultra lip here is actually not shiny. It just reflects more light. This is actually shiny polished to reflect a lot more light. And then you have this gray. Then you have the black with like the like your watch, like basically like like little signs for where it hits, like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, whatever, right? I'm not like an expert in like watch vocabulary. And that black is not perfectly matching the black of the OLED screen. And then you have a circular screen inside a squared off device. Oh, Daniel Cian, hello. You came right in the right time to watch me rant. And by the way, guys, we have now been live for a full hour. I just wanted to remind you, if you're enjoying this content, please subscribe to the channel. It helps out tremendously to grow the community. Like the video, so of course the algorithm can recommend it to more people. Comment on the video, both live and once the video has already been uploaded, and share it out to anybody who you think might enjoy it. If you want to support this channel directly, there are super chats, super stickers, Patreon memberships, and now YouTube channel memberships. Daniel, you're saying you're watching me on a train now. I hope not a German train, because our internet inside our trains is trash. Jan, you're saying this is what happens when a interns design it. This is designed by the main like Mercedes guy that Samsung hired. He was supposed to bring like a fresh new wind, and that fresh new wind was apparently him just farting in the room and just Watch Ultra, bad copy of Apple Watch Ultra. Jesus Christ, it makes me so angry I can barely type.
They've finally come up with is titanium
Now, I'll get to it once we get there.
body sapphire crystal display, same size 1.5.
So you see it has 2 buttons on the side, it's right on that side, and then it has a speaker here. If we actually go back to the Apple Watch, we do have the speaker here. We have 1 button here, 1 button here. Of course, we have the digital crown. So the Apple Watch, now we do have that other button there. So technically there's the same amount, but then I would argue that the digital crown is greatly superior. But that's neither here nor there. The copy is just so shameless that it's like, all my other complaints, even like that circular screen inside that squared off design, even that barely matters once you consider just how bad of a copy this is. Daniel says it looks fake, and Samsung is losing their authentic design. So exactly like Samsung rotating, I don't, did they call it the crown? Bezel, right? Watch. Samsung is all about bezels. The classic rotating bezel. So Samsung could either give you like a relatively thin bezel, like a glass bezel, that is in line with the screen aesthetic, right? So the black matches the black of when the screen is turned off, or they give you a slightly thicker bezel, but then there's a rotating bezel, which kind of replicates the functionality of Apple's digital crown. Now, unmistakably, the digital crown is a better use of space, right, than this bezel. But this was unique, it looked cool, and it actually worked well. And it underscored the circular form factor. I have always said that circular form factor probably looks better. The reason why it looks better is because our minds are more accustomed to seeing circular watches. I've always said that I prefer rectangular or squared off screens for the usability, because this is a smart watch, not just a watch to tell time. But if you're going with like a circular screen, you better design the rest around that screen. And this is exactly what you get when you actually put your mind to it. And when you think about it, right, you actually have now a nicely tapered off design from where the watch band is like inserted into the device. That looks good and clean, right? That bezel here looks like objectively cheaper in a way, which makes it like a really good differentiator. But when you actually think about it, this bezel is actually thicker than this one. So you actually, if you go for a cheaper device, you don't actually lose that much, but you do lose some of the coolness factor, which is exactly, in my opinion, how like a watch lineup should be differentiated. And we went from this to this, which is like from the side, it looks basically exactly like an Apple Watch, except it doesn't have like the protrusion on the front, which is here, right? It doesn't have like this bulbous thing going on, which again, the Apple Watch Ultra design is somewhat controversial in of itself. So the fact that Samsung saw the need to copy this design and not the design of what is probably still, in my opinion, by far the best looking Apple Watch, like the Series 7 going to the Series 9, whatever, like with that super slim bezel, with the way how like the metal integrates almost into it, the way that the roundness makes it both more durable, but also gives it like this, almost like this comforting look, like the fact that you know it will not cut into your skin or anything. And in fact, and instead, Samsung did this.
5-inch circular display as the 44mm, but a much beefier body around it to fit in a 590 milliamp hour
okay, no
battery.
Yeah, you can already see, by the way, the interface. This is the problem with Samsung not designing like their own operating system. This is clearly not designed for this screen, right? Is it actually cut off, or does it end right there? It tries to blend in, right? Where it's like, oh, technically it replicates the roundness here, but not fully actually. And then this thing starts looking asymmetrical, like in the way that it's positioned. but I guess you can also say that this is like a an awareness thing almost, so you know in which like almost like space you are. But like this looks so bad, and what you consider this is like the optimized thing in the OS. This is not like a long text message or email that were all designed for like rectangular screens. And then to add insult to injury, not only is this a circular screen, this is a circular screen inside a perfectly rectangular device. What is this? Why do I have to look at what is either like just titanium or like also like ceramic or something like that? Why do I have to look at it? Why do I have to waste space on it? Why do I have to have these like indicators for what time it is all the time? I'm so sorry. I'm so stupid. uh, why do I have to have these time indicators here inside every app? Right? Like if we actually go back to the Series 6 design here, right? Oh my god. It's like the So for one, look at this bezel, right? This bezel didn't have it, and this has it like ever so slightly, right? Right around the edge. But then the actual edge is not that. How do you go from this to this monstrosity? Some will tell me now like, oh, but you can still get like the Galaxy Watch 7 or whatever. And like, bro, no, you cannot introduce an Ultra and immediately tell me, well, it's so bad, you should probably only look at the regular one. Daniel, you're saying the worst part is that this doesn't sit well with the Samsung phone lineup. It seems to be from another brand and knockoff. I am not against having devices that look and feel different. For example, going back to the Apple Watch, I did not fart. That was my my stool or my chair. I'm saying it didn't fart. That sound came from my stool. It sounds almost as bad. But where were we? The Apple Watch. Right, this almost also looks like it's coming from a different company, but it's also very deliberately differently positioned, right? It's an outdoors device. An iPhone, while sure you use it outdoors, it's not really designed to be as rugged and as interactive with the environment in terms of potentially hitting the ground, diving 50, 60 meters deep in the water, all those things that the Apple Watch Ultra is optimized for. So you can feel that it's different, but it's different with purpose, right? What is that design aesthetic called? Can somebody? It's it's like, it's not robustness. It's brutalism. This is almost a brutalist design. Now, what prevents it from being properly brutalist, I would say, is like the soft bulbous way, the way it looks here. But yeah, this almost looks brutalist. The Galaxy Watch does so too, and it actually pulls it off more in like a gray bad way, like an almost like a Soviet Union style building block, right, where you have like this kind of gray and this kind of gray and then a black that is slightly gray, but and somewhere in the somewhere in there you just found a tiny bit of color, which probably would have been red if it was a Soviet Union watch. But like, you have this brutalist design that doesn't know what it wants to be. These edges, they almost look like the polished aluminum edges from the iPhone 5, right? But they serve no purpose here, right? Because they then clash with the dark chassis that protrudes to the sides, which obviously you now have the crown guard here as well. You couldn't just leave well enough alone. You had to copy this design element too. And then it goes into this gray and then this black, but I'm repeating myself at this point. You're saying the Apple Watch Ultra sits well with the titanium iPhone. The iPhone is not as rounded, nor does it have this kind of like unevenness with like that protruding lip, the crown guard. And again, like purely material wise, I would say so. Yes, I agree. And of course, that the old screen, the design as well. But fundamentally, it looks different from the iPhone because it's a very different device. That's to me is totally fine. But yes, I definitely agree that you can still feel that it's Apple, that it's designed to fit into a larger hole. But I'm so stupid sometimes. But the fact that it looks different does not bother me. I'm personally not. Guys, I bought it. I like the design of the regular Apple Watch more, but I understand why the Ultra looks the way it does. I just don't understand why this looks the way it does beyond two things, which is we copied Apple's homework to the point of having a crown guard design with an orange action button, but we didn't have a rectangular watch screen to go. So what we did is we pushed into it for no apparent reason, but this is the part we had. This is how logistics work. We gave it the same circular 1.5-inch screen as our other Samsung Galaxy watches. This is what happens when you compromise on design in a weird way and then aren't willing to actually also speak with your logistics, with your operating system, of course, optimization. We can argue about a lot. For example, Apple screwed up with the Magic Keyboard, right? And Magic Keyboards broke over and over again, was quite embarrassing, yada, yada, yada. Apple screwed up with things like just how slow the original Apple Watch was, right? To the point that when they actually upgraded it to the Series 2, they actually created the Series 1, which was the original Apple Watch, but with a new processor, because that original processor was unacceptably slow. Right, but it's a first generation device. They had the chip probably was in development for quite a long time, yada yada yada. So some excuse here. Apple would never launch a product like this, and I swear that to you. Like the current Apple that we have, with all its new modern faults, because Steve Jobs left and the company's in disarray, and Tim Cook is just a cheap SMFer who is not willing to invest like Steve did, which is all bullshit, but that's another discussion. Apple would never release a product like this. I can explain to you in excruciating detail why the Apple Watch Ultra looks the way it looks. Even if you don't like it, I can explain it to you. And I mean with that, like, oh, that form factor has a function. Or it's a form factor so pretty that you're actually willing to sacrifice function, right? That's what happens when Apple sometimes goes too thin. Or what we saw with the Magic Keyboard. I cannot explain to you in terms of actual function why this device looks the way it does. I can tell you, oh, it's larger because they wanted to put in a larger battery. I can tell you it has a digital, basically a digital crown and a crown guard, which, by the way, with the way the button is placed, barely protects it. Yeah, Samsung. But the fact that they couldn't even give you a rectangular screen on a clearly rectangular watch is so freaking insulting. And some people will say, oh, it's $650. It's $150 cheaper than the Apple Watch Ultra. Oh, it has apnea detection. Like, bro, like, nah. You cannot tell me that this device feels like a finished product. I can tell you exactly why it looks the way it looks. Not because of functionality, but because they copied Apple's homework and they then were too freaking lazy to give you a screen that matches the overall new form factor, because that would also come with them having to optimize, their version of Android Wear for a rectangular screen. And I hate that. I wouldn't pay a dime for this product. If somebody wants to send it to me so I can review it, I'll give it a fair shot. But my God, am I not giving any respect to this kind of design?
To 100 meters, they gave it a new watch face.
Oh, like,
dual frequency
look at
G,
this.
water resistant to 100 meters. They
like, look, it just feels like everything is just so weirdly cut off.
Gave it a new watch face, dual frequency GPS, which is also coming to the Watch 7. And as you can see, they gave it this big orange button called the action button. The quick button. It's called the quick button, which is a custom mappable, activity button that can start any number of different activities or workouts or whatever you want it to do. I mean, look, it's clear that this is
it has
targeted
a siren. Of course, it has native siren functionality.
at the Apple Watch Ultra. I don't think they're trying to hide that at all. It's
I mean, you can see which device actually feels like a finished product.
literally the same name. But this one is also $650 instead of
Nope, that's not an excuse.
Apple's $800. So my question is basically just how do they stack up head to head? Battery-wise, it may actually be better.
Jan, you're saying you're in pain? Oh, you mean like in pain from the product, or do you actually have like a medical emergency? And Daniel, you're saying that your internet is too weak to watch. Yeah, that sucks. What you can do with a live stream, like if you're willing to listen to me again, you can scroll back like a minute, and then you will be like far enough off from the actual live part of the live stream to the point that the Apple it might actually catch up, or like because it won't be catching up. You will have like some reserve. You can use like the slower internet.
Better. They're saying it can do 100 hours in power saving mode, but also, feature wise, accuracy wise, we'll see. Samsung is also doing this new thing where they basically compile all of your health metrics from everything they measure into one score, an energy score with AI.
Which is stupid,
and I want to give that a
okay.
shot as well. But yeah, this is basically just an obvious entry to give you an option at that higher price point like Apple's done with their Ultra Watch. So now it's going to be out there. Now they also announced the new Galaxy Buds 3 and Buds 3 Pro. And they have obvious equivalents in other ecosystems as well. But there's some new cases and new designs here. Everyone's saying actually aesthetically they look like the first generation AirPods, which they're not wrong, especially at the top. But then these long stems on the Buds
Yeah,
Pro.
and you're in pain because of the action button. It's not an action button, bro. It's a quick button. Get it right.
Actually have these blade lights.
What do I even say about this? The issue is not that the design in of itself is bad, right? But if you ask me, why does this product look the way it does? Why, even though it feels like it was optimized for something super rounded, it's not actually rounded, right? And we have to jump back to Apple's website because I'm going insane. Where do we have like a shot where it like protrudes out of the device, out of the chassis? Yeah. So here, of course, the case I'll actually be forgiving somewhat of the case. They gave it like that translucent like lid on top, makes it look a little bit like the Nothing earbuds. It's definitely in terms of form factor, like definitely inspired by it, but it could be worse. It's the fact that it looks like this, but they were saying to themselves, oh, it cannot be a perfectly round stem, right? Because it would look too much like AirPods. So their designers in CAD basically took this point of the earbud, and then they drew a line down to this portion, and then they extended the stem to match it, right? It's a little bit how the curve on the PS5 works, for anybody who knows a PS5. But it ends just in a sharp edge here. And I can tell you the reason why it looks the way it looks, which is like this, is because they didn't want to admit that it's a copy of this. It's the exact same story with the Galaxy Watch Ultra. You can like my stance or not. You can shit on me as an Apple Watch shill or whatever. I maintain that this is like the worst Samsung design exercise in like the last decade. And Jan, you're saying you're basically getting killed by the actual design of the buds because they're just so egregiously copied in comparison to even, well, I would say the Ultra Watch is worse, but it's a little bit less of a copy, right? This definitely feels like it's a copy where something went wrong with the CAD files. So the 3D printer just like combined aspects that shouldn't be combined. Yeah, this is weird.
To indicate different modes or statuses, which is pretty interesting. And then, of course, they beef up the pros over the regular buds with things like ambient mode and soft tips.
Wait, ambient mode? So transparency mode? Wait, the cheaper model? Wait, but the cheaper models
buds with things, which is pretty.
Oh, the cheaper models don't have like silicon tips. Okay, so that's why they wouldn't have. But that also means like their active noise cancellation is going to be shit. Which like yeah, so it is on the AirPods 3, but that's kind of the point about this device. Like they're supposed to forgo the silicon tips on the AirPods because some people just find those uncomfortable, right? And some people have said, I will buy like in some ways the worst value AirPods 3 because they're so close in price to the AirPods Pro 2, but they just don't have active noise cancellation, transparency mode, whatever, right? Because I don't like the feeling of silicon tips in my ear.
Interesting. And then, of course, they beef up the pros over.
Let me look at how it's described here. So this is, yeah, okay. So they do have one that don't have silicon tips, which of course I now have to go back to Apple's website. And beyond this, AirPods 3rd generation. Wait, what? Oh, here. Yeah, so of course you see it, right? Like this is not a coinkydink. This is very, very intentional.
Over the different modes or
right? Like the stem, of course, the bulbous like head. Granted, that head portion kind of has to be that way because like you want like the acoustic chamber inside basically to create sound. But the fact that Samsung actually in the past had already created earbuds without silicone tips. How did they look in the past? Galaxy Buds Live, or better known as Galaxy Beans. There they are. Oh, they're still on Samsung's website. Yeah, so the Buds Live or Samsung's kidney beans or kidneys, depending on your perspective, those were their attempt to give you like really comfortable like silicon tip-free design, similar to what Apple is doing in terms of approach, but not a one-to-one copy in design. And when you actually look at even like the evolution of what they did, you can still see small inspirations of like a standalone design. It's just, of course, it became way, way more like any regular bud out there. If you actually look at their Buds FE fan edition, you can actually see that those are just the cheaper versions of the current Buds 2, now Buds 3. And now the Buds 3 obviously are so different and so obviously AirPods inspired in a way that Samsung's Buds have literally never been. Like, we can argue about like, oh, I would argue that their Galaxy Watches haven't ever been like too much copying from Apple. But I can definitely not, I would give even a higher compliment to like their past with the Galaxy Buds with something like the Live version, because those were actually interesting. And it's just, to me, it's completely unfathomable like what exactly they're doing here. And just let me look at what is actually their pricing here. It's $250 for the Buds 3 Pro, and it's $180 for the Buds 3. They're matching Apple's pricing. What the frick? I thought this was like 200 versus 120. How did they arrive at these prices? Are they insane? Oh my god. Like this is the German website. Let me go. Like, what is the official dollar price for AirPods Pro? It's 250, right? Yeah, it's 250, and you can get these for like 210 or even like $200 pretty often. If you are willing to go for like the Lightning version, you can even get them for like 180 sometimes. And that means that the regular ones, again, leaving the German website, that means that the regular ones are like, what were they? 170, 180? 170 or 180 with the MagSafe charging case. Oh my god, Samsung went absolutely bananas here.
Statuses, which is pretty interesting. And then, of course, they beef up the pros over the regular buds with things like ambient mode and soft tips and this new adaptive noise cancellation that goes up or down based on the surroundings, like sirens. So the Buds 3 are $179 and the Buds Pro are $249. But last but not least, they finally gave us details on the Ring, that thing that they teased, I don't know how many months ago it was when we first saw it. And the idea is pretty simple. It's a ring, it's a 24/7 fitness tracker, something that you can wear not just while you're awake, but when you sleep and when you shower and going swimming and all that stuff, something you just always have on you. Now, I've actually never tested a smart ring before, believe it or not. I play a lot of sports with my hands. I've never worn a ring for a long time, but from what I understand, the Aura Ring is basically the standard that everyone is.
Yeah, it's also the only really relevant one. From what I know, like people complain about like their subscription model. I actually don't know what the default pricing is of the Aura Ring. Or it's Aura, okay. Not like the Aura. Shop. Yeah, I'll accept all your cookies. Feed me like the Cookie Monster. Om nom 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 nom. Shop. Oh my god, this is such a pretentious website. Two distinct styles. A sleek circular design and a classic plateau design. Okay. A ring for every lifestyle. Wait, do you actually try to sell me the product on your shop? Choose your Aura Ring. Jesus Christ. It's 329 euros. I want the dollar prices. Okay, I assume it's very similar, but without the membership. So this is basically the company that Samsung 100% is trying to match here in terms of pricing. Wait, I cannot change the region? Like, what's going on? Like, it's not like I have DE here somewhere. So, and it's in English. So why does it not give me like a chance to actually like Aura Ring price US? I assume it's pretty much probably 1-to-1. It's $300 instead of $329. Okay. It still doesn't look too good, but and then I assume it's $350 for the bigger one, for like the slightly different design. Yeah, $300 to $350 plus that $6 monthly fee. Okay, so we now have a clear answer. It's actually cheaper than the Galaxy Ring, but it does come with a monthly subscription that will basically make up that price difference in about a year. It will make more than make up for it versus the $350 version, but still be under it for the $300 version. Then it's more 1 year and 80% of another year. Let's continue.
Familiar with. So I'm assuming Samsung is going to at least try to match what the Oura Ring does. So we finally get to see this Samsung Ring, and it looks basically exactly like any other smart ring. Pretty minimal on the outside, actually a slightly concave design.
Yeah,
to avoid
I
scratch.
actually have to say I like that. I think it looks visually interesting. I do prefer convex rings simply because of I'm a giant Lord of the Rings fan. Oh, by the way, guys, I do have a small question towards you. Ring insignia LOTR tattoo arm, just something like that. Oh yeah, right, right like that. Guys, what do you think like that? I want to get this tattoo. That would be my first tattoo. I'm probably gonna share this out on Twitter because obviously I have a lot of followers, but like a lot of interested followers. But yeah, if you agree with this choice for me, let me know. But let's actually continue with the main video so I can actually wrap it up so I don't turn it into an over 2 hour video. We're over 1.5 hours in. I just want to remind you guys again, please subscribe, like, share, comment. If you want to give a small donation, you can do that in the form of a super chat or a super sticker. And if you want to support this channel in the long term, do so with a channel membership or with subscribing to my Patreon.
Which I think is pretty clever. And then it comes in 3 different finishes on a titanium frame. There's matte black or silver.
Okay, so it's
gold.
titanium, and that's why it's $400. Yeah, I mean, it has probably 1/4 the amount of titanium that an Apple Watch Ultra would, but okay.
I'll give you one guess at what my favorite is. It's
I would
7
say matte black here looks bad because, like, yes, it could be. What could it be, like obsidian or something, or like I don't know, like it just doesn't look like a premium material because of that color.
Meters wide and 2.6 millimeters thick. The sensors are all on the inside as expected, so heart rate, skin temperature, accelerometer, etc. And it's water resistant to 100 meters as well. So this thing is claiming a roughly 7-day battery.
Okay, it's not a great fit on his finger. I have pretty thick fingies, so it probably would look better on my hand.
Battery life, depending on your size. And once it's dead, you can pop it on this clever little charging case that when you do, it kind of lights up a ring around the ring to show you your charging status, which is kind of cool. And it should give you about 1.5 more times the total life of the ring until you charge it all up again. And then the price...
Okay, at that point, why not get for full 2 recharges?
Will be $399. Which is $100 more than the base Oura Ring price, but the difference here is no subscription cost. So the Oura Ring does have a subscription. It's like $6 a month, and that eventually adds up. But this will just be $399 for the watch. It gets all the features, all the Samsung Health stuff, but you also must use a Samsung Galaxy phone and the Samsung Health app. So yeah, I'm happy to see some competition that isn't a subscription. And that's kind of it. That is what Samsung announced today. It's 2 new phones, it's 2 new earbuds, it's 2 new watches, and the Ring, and that's all hitting
I
shelves
wonder,
relative.
is it known when the Galaxy Ring is like actually coming out? Galaxy Ring, when there should be like one ring to rule them all or something like that. It's just Series 6. They had like a write-up on it too. Which again, shout out to The Verge for actually pretty good write-ups here. So 7mm wide, 2.6 millimeters thick. Here it is in black. Okay, that one has style. So you can choose. Well, you can choose size, right? The sizing kit, of course. It's hands-on. Sorry, iOS users, it's only for Android. That's fine by me. It's available for pre-order at Amazon, Best Buy, and Samsung starting today. General availability starting at the end of the month on July 24th. Okay, so it's not it's not an egregious way. They kind of like some people just didn't mention them in their videos, and I was like, oh, is it far away? No, it's $400, launching soon. I don't know if it has all the health features of the Galaxy Watch. I would hope so. like something especially new like the apnea feature, but I would have to look into that. And once there are actually reviews out there, I will definitely react to that. I just want to slowly wrap this up because obviously, as I said, I want to make this like a between 1.5 and 2 hour video, and that's basically exactly on the trajectory we're on.
Soon. All pretty premiumly priced as well. Wow, that was an alliteration. That was total accent. But yeah, all the stuff's coming out soon. Now, before you go, what if I told you this phone is worth...
that's an ad. Sorry, Marquez. While I don't mind showing an ad inside the video when it's at the very end, doesn't interest me that much, unfortunately. So, guys, I have ranted, I think, quite enough for this video. Take this, please, as an apology video for me not reacting to the actual Galaxy Unpacked event. So I reacted to a small summary of that event. I've collected some data on it, but some questions remains, like, does the Galaxy Ring have all the functionality of the Galaxy Watch? And of course, a lot of it will remain to be seen in reviews because, again, it's a $400 device. They promise like 7 days of battery life. I don't know. Like, it doesn't have a screen, so it probably should have pretty consistent battery life at least. And for issues such as cooling and whatever, I hope it works well. But again, I cannot promise you any of that. But without extra data, I can just tell you the pricing seems a little bit steep, but at least it doesn't have that subscription price. And the material is premium at least. I mean, again, the Apple Watch Ultra is $800 and has a freaking metric ton more of titanium than this, but at least it's somewhat justified. If Apple launched this at $400, I would still call it steep. I might be a little more accepting of it, because I genuinely trust Apple a little bit more when it comes to stuff like that. I knew that there would be like a Galaxy Ring 2 and stuff like that. With Samsung, they're not quite a Google graveyard thing of like started projects, but they do sometimes not fully commit to certain things. Of course, we have talked about them copying Apple's AirPods design with the Galaxy Buds. Where are the Galaxy Buds? Oh my God, there's so much to keep track of here, actually. You saw the Galaxy Buds. This is Bose. Oh my God, what's with this Bose design? This looks weird. Maybe I'll check it out some other time. Or was it like Samsung Unpacked, Galaxy Buds, new Galaxy Ring wearable? Why do they not have a link to the Galaxy Buds? There. Yeah, of course, we do have especially the exact same pricing, the exact same product differentiation between like no silicon tips and obviously once you have silicon tips, like the fact that it adds other features on top. It's and then like that design copying but making it angular. It doesn't sit quite that right by me, but at least it's not super egregious. What is super egregious to me is the Galaxy Watch Ultra, which I believe is such a cheap copy of the Apple Watch Ultra, from the name to the overall form factor, but then to the crown guard, to the international orange, which I'm not even sure it's the same type, like tint of orange, but to the orange quick button. And then, of course, it's all capped off by like a circular screen that they couldn't be bothered to optimize the OS and give you a screen that actually fits this form factor. This is where I'm most pissed off, and I've given you enough to react in reaction to that. And then the things I'm most apathetic about, like apathic? I think it's apathetic. The thing I'm most neutral on, sort of, is are there new foldables, which I think don't go far enough to actually make foldables exciting again, and the price increase sucks. But at the same time, they're not worse than the previous generation. So while I would actually say that the Galaxy Watch Ultra to me just makes no sense when you can get for less than half the money the regular watch and you then just charge it a little more often. You get a far prettier watch in return with most of the features. Yes, I know their Ultra also has some of Apple's other improvements like that they wanted to bring, like dual GPS and whatever, but again, how much do you actually benefit from them? And if you actually need like an outdoors watch, get like a Garmin in cooperation with like your regular smartwatch. But with the foldables, again, I'm a huge unfan of the flip design, but I know some people like it. I have no idea why anybody would like it at $1,100, but whatever. And then I'm a pretty good decent supporter of the fold design. It's just a shame that Samsung is now falling behind the competition that has clearly adopted more favorable form factors in terms of like slightly wider external screens, so it's actually more usable without being unfolded. Again, $1,900, way too steep for me, not because I cannot afford it, but because I just would struggle to justify it mentally. And at least some camera improvements, like the ultra wide here is better, but the flip finally gets new cameras, which was greatly overdue. More RAM on the flip, more storage on both. Vapor chamber heatsink for the first time on the flip, but larger vapor chamber heatsink on the fold. So hopefully the 8 Gen 3 at least doesn't like throttle more in them than the 8 Gen 2 did in the previous generation. So it scales nicely. Maybe it will even perform better. Huge battery disappointment for the fold, but then a small good moment for the flip with a slightly larger battery. So it's a mixed bag. If it weren't for the price increase, I probably would be more charitable. I'm not even sure how necessary those 512 gigabytes of storage are at that point. I think they should have just still targeted the same prices with 256 gigabytes, but then also gave the flip just like more base memory, more RAM. But that's neither here nor there. Those were clearly not the standout announcements. I think the Galaxy Ring is interesting, but it's also the product we know least about in terms of its actual real-world behavior because it is so new. But when it comes to what they announced in terms of sequels for already existing product, let's say at the very least, I'm not a huge fan. Now, you can try blaming this on me being an Apple shill. You can try saying that maybe I just hate anything related to Samsung, and maybe I just came here with a lot of hatred. Even though in my previous reactions to Samsung events, I've been like usually pretty subdued and mostly actually complained about the presentation style and pacing rather than the actual products. But today I had a lot more to complain about. So you can decide whether I'm doing it for like crazy views, that's not what's happening here, bro. Or like to suck up to Tim Apple, which he ain't never gonna see this video, bro, either. So it's a genuine reaction because I genuinely don't like cheap copying from other companies. I'm actually somebody, I believe that while the consumer should be in the focus, I have big respect for proper intellectual property rights and it's not like patents as much. It's more like the general feeling that the device like evokes. I actually believe that the likeness of a product, if you will, I believe that this is very, very imperative that companies try to come up with their own. And I just hate it when in one fellow swoop, Samsung undoes actually pretty long trend of goodwill where at least they tried something different. You might not have always loved it. And now they just said, oh, here we have AirPods at home. We have Apple Watch Ultra at home. Come to our home. That's basically it. And if you want to, you can get a Galaxy Ring at the price of 1.5 Apple Watch SE. So that's basically my impression of this event. As always, if you enjoyed watching this, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it out to anybody who you think might enjoy it, comment on the video. Obviously, this is at the end of the video, so probably not live, but still comment on it once the video has been uploaded. If you want to support me directly, if you catch me live, you can leave a super chat or a super sticker, or you can subscribe to my channel with special channel memberships. Shout out go to Angelica and Maximus. I always chuckle when I see that name, who are MarkTech Pro Max supporters on the channel. And if you also want to, you can go to, or no, you don't have to do also, but you can go to Patreon, and there are different tiers there. A shout out goes to Louis Gold, who is our MarkTech Pro Max supporter over there. But there are also free tiers if you just want to have a place to contact me. Of course, Twitter is kind of the best thing, but you can also do so via Patreon. Of course, as always, leave a comment on what you would like to see me cover next. Let me know what you thought of my reactions, if they are fair or if they're completely unfounded or something like that. But until next time, I'll see you then. And I would really love to know what you would want to see, because I'm kind of out of ideas. I would like to continue the coverage of like what Samsung introduced, but quite honestly, until we get actual reviews, there isn't that much to talk about, unfortunately. Like, it's not like I can predict like how good the Galaxy Ring will actually be in real life. But there probably will be some iPhone rumors, iPad rumors. Again, we've talked about some very recently. And of course, there's at least always like the weekly Mark Gurman report. But beyond that, if you want me to react to something different, maybe like the CMF phone one by nothing, I'm actually pretty open to that. Maybe I'll actually do that. But I'm open for your suggestions. With that being said, I wish you all a nice day or evening or morning or whatever else. I see you next time. This is MarkTech tuning out.